Amy, let me tell you about a magical place that is so exactly designed to be enclosed space, year-round fun for the whole family that I bet you already know what I'm going to say before I even say the name. Let's say it together on 3. 1, 2, 3. Great Wolf Lodge. You got it, Amy.
My kids loved Great Wolf Lodge when we went. You probably already know that it has a huge indoor water park with a wave pool, lazy river, a bunch of massive water slides. But then your pack can hit the other attractions because wait, there's more.
Great Wolf Lodge has adventure-packed attractions like Magi Quest, a live-action game kids can play throughout the lodge, plus the Northern Lights Arcade. Spent some quality time there, so your kid who loves the lazy river and your kid who loves fantasy games will both have a great time.
Great Wolf Lodge also offers great dining options and complimentary daily events like nightly dance parties, all under one roof. Unpack the car once and you're settled in to have fun. And with 22 lodges across the country, you're always a short drive away from adventure.
We've both had such great times at Great Wolf Lodge, so bring your pack together at a lodge near you. Learn more at greatwolf.com and strengthen the pack. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fresh Take from What Fresh Hell, laughing in the face of motherhood. This is Margaret.
And this is Amy. Today we're talking to Dr. Michael Milobsky. He is a board-certified pediatrician with 25 years experience practicing in Denver, Colorado. Dr. Milobsky is a father of 7 kids, ages 15 to 29, and he's also the grandfather of 3. Dr. Milobsky specializes in pediatric emergency and hospital medicine, adolescent mental health and addiction, and medically complex or special needs children. You can find his content on TikTok, Instagram, and on YouTube, as well as on his podcast, Your Kids Will Be Fine. Welcome, Dr. Mike.
True pleasure to be here. I'm a big fan of What Fresh Hell and the podcast.
Thank you. Well, why do parents today need to hear that more than ever? Because they do. Your kids will be fine. Why is that so hard for parents to accept these days?
Yeah, that's kind of where the podcast came from, just my day-to-day experience. My pediatric career has crossed 2 eras, right? It really started in the pre-social media, pre-internet era. I think when I finished my residency and fellowship, we had a gateway computer that had a plug-in modem and could download a picture after 8 minutes. And that was it. And now my 7th child was born in 2010, and now I have parented and treated people in the age of information overload. And it is way harder. It's the hardest, I think, time ever to be a parent, to feel competent, to not have our anxiety overwhelm us because of the massive overload of information, which constantly sets us against one another and in doubt about what we know, what we don't know, parenting in the public forum. And I think that a generation of parents ago didn't suffer like this.
I feel like this leads us into a first question that we have from one of our listeners, which is the famous phrase, if you hear hoofbeats, you think about horses, not about zebras. That's the old kind of idea. But that as a parenting podcast and a parenting community online, we talk to a lot of people who they have done a ton of research. They are seeing something that concerns them in their kid. But then they're going to a medical professional who might be saying, okay, Dr. Google Mom, relax. And how do we, in this age of information, how do we be heard and how do we also dismiss things that maybe are wrong?
That's a fabulous question. I think the first thing is that it's unrealistic from a standpoint of what I do to think that people are not going to leverage AI and the information at their disposal to come with concerns and questions. It's a reality that is now part of who we are. And I don't have that expectation. I have that expectation. That's what parents are going to come to me with. So the next part of that answer is that all hinges on the relationship you have with the person that you've entrusted with the care of your kids. And then that leads into the whole discussion, how that has been irreparably changed and eroded by the system in which we are all working, and makes it harder to really leverage and engage in that relationship in the way it needs to be for me to be able to get you to say, I hear what you're saying, Sables, and I acknowledge that this was good research and I hear why you're concerned. Here's what I'm going to retort to that, and why, as someone who's done this for 25 years, say, not all of this may apply here because of my vast experience in my training. So let's come to a shared decision-making on what the best steps are forward and outline those, so then we can go with A and then B and then C. So you feel like your effort wasn't wasted because the stuff you looked up was probably valid. I mean, the truth is AI is becoming more and more precise and more reliable, like by the week. So we have to respect it and we have to trust it. We have to know that it has access to information that I haven't always thought of. But what I have access to is information on the ground, and having done this over and over and over and over, and what we can ignore and what we shouldn't ignore and how it can change. But what all of that takes is time. As someone who has been a pediatrician in multiple settings and now owns a pediatric business, that is the problem. I am not afforded the ability to leverage that relationship and time to establish those kinds of things in a visit, especially with a complex situation, because of the way insurance dictates how they compensate us, how I have to get paid to keep the lights on and keep the staff paid, and how that then makes it harder and harder to devote that time when I have to see 6 people an hour because of the way our insurance companies have now decided to value my time to be able to give you what you need in that setting. And I know that I can't fix the system, so I'm leaning more into my concierge care truly because of response to this, because I don't want to practice this way anymore. As much as I still own my practice, I'm still here, but I find that I can develop these relationships and develop that kind of rapport when we are not limited by that. And then I can spend that time.
We used to say in the restaurant business, greet them, feed them, and street them. And now doctors are greet them, treat them, and street them, right?
Correct.
Like get them in, get them out. That's the number one thing.
Right. And what's my alternative? My alternative is to say, I'd love to spend the time on this that I don't have, but we can maybe run a few tests, refer you to a subspecialist, and maybe make sure that we're not missing something. But that doesn't really check the boxes in the way that you were talking about.
I have a follow-up question for that. As the parent of a medically complex kid, with excellent support, by the way, from not only that kid's pediatrician, but the other specialists, I always feel when I'm walking in to see somebody new that I have to walk this specific tightrope between seeming informed and not too well informed, and not that mom, and not a nut, and not annoying, and because you specialize in treating medically complex kids, who's a parent that you look forward to collaborating with and why?
So I look forward to collaborating with someone who's really becoming the PhD expert in their kid, because that's what I need you to be. Because I can be what I can be, but I can't know everything. I can quarterback and access your subspecialty teams, and I can access you. And that's who I love working with, someone who really is the PhD in their kid. Because as you know, even with the same diagnosis, no two of these kids are ever even the same. And that's what I value the most, is someone who's really taken that time. I don't judge people for their level of concern or their worry. There's a lot of anxiety and worry. And part of being someone who takes care of these kids, you have to recognize that and be able to work with that and understand that that person is coming from a totally different set of conditions than someone who didn't have to walk this path with a very young, fragile, and complicated child.
But on the other side of that, now I have a family member who's a brand spanking new pediatrician, second-year resident. Definitely feeling some of the pressure of the information overload that involves a lot of misinformation, vaccine hesitancy, people worrying about the vitamin K shot, and different aspects of people coming in and saying, listen, you may be a doctor, but I've got 1,000 people on Facebook telling me that vitamin K does this, and you, as you said, maybe have 5 minutes to explain to me blood clotting in children and the consequences of it.
I know, right?
I think a lot of this started after the pandemic.
Well, for those of us who practiced pre-pandemic, it was around, but it was low level. It wasn't pervasive. It was a fringy, kind of kooky wing of everybody's clinical experience. And now it's central in almost every visit. I think the brand speaking new pediatrician is the most vulnerable in the situation because they don't have the benefit of doing it long enough to be able, so they're Googling too.
Mm-hmm.
I can look you in the eye and say, I've been doing this for so long, let me tell you what I see and what you don't want to see. And I'm believable. For someone who's been doing this for 5 minutes, and pediatric residency used to be long enough, it needs to be 2 years longer now because of this. Pediatric residency really should be 5 years now, or at least 4, because of the need to develop this part of ourselves before we face this onslaught.
So from a long practicing pediatrician, are vaccines a good idea for children?
The absolute truth is, and this has been supported over and over again by every single time they study this and test this on populations of children around the world for the last 20 to 30 years, now going on studies involving tens of millions of children from every part of the globe, is that vaccines are the single most important and beneficial advance in human history in the health and well-being and longevity of our children, full stop, period. There's been nothing greater in human achievement as vaccines have been in preserving, improving, and upgrading childhood and human life. 100 years ago, every single family knew a family who had 1 or 2 kids die regularly. And I defy you to walk down your street and knock on every door in your neighborhood and find out how many people have had a child die of anything. Not that terrible, tragic things don't happen and people get into accidents, but that is not the norm now. And that is overwhelmingly due to our success in eliminating vaccine preventable disease, both bacterial and viral, from our childhood experience. And we've been so good at it that we forgot what it's done. And people now think or overly romanticize what it used to be like because they weren't there and think that we don't need them.
On our podcast, we like to say, solved it at the end of every episode.
Solved it.
Here's when we have not come down on a very clear answer, but that was an extremely clear answer and one we certainly agree with.
And I do think it's valuable because I also, and we say this all the time, we feel for you. I get it. You are getting a lot of information. It's not because you're a dummy. It's not because you're a loser.
It's overwhelming.
I mean, I have a very trusted pediatrician in my family. And I said, I'm going to ask this because I'm hearing a lot of things. Are vaccines safe? And she walked me through and had the time because she was a family member for 45 minutes. Listen, nothing ever doesn't harm anybody, but we're on a scale and I'm sympathetic to people who have questions, but I also think it's worth repeating as often as possible that from a doctor's point of view, vaccines are working.
Correct. There's no question that reactions and things can happen, but those numbers and the way people perceive them, especially because of the social media internet, is so warped and so not part of reality. The number of years I've been working and the number of children that I see conservatively probably handed out a couple million doses of vaccine conservatively myself. I have at least a network in Denver alone of at least 5 to 7 colleagues who are exactly my age and have been working exactly as long as I have, who have handed out exact same number of vaccines I have. So collectively, let's put it conservatively, 10 million doses of vaccines of every stripe between 5 long practicing pediatricians in a single city. And not a single one of us, all of us work 6 days a week, at least 12 hours a day for the last 25 years. I've never even heard of a single patient ever show up with a vaccine injury or a major negative side effect, major negative medical issue because of the vaccine. Yes, they happen. We know they happen. But think about the numbers just in that little, to get a sense of how rare that actually is.
We're talking to Dr. Michael Milobsky. When we get back, we're going to share our listeners' most burning questions for a pediatrician with decades of experience. Hellions, it's time for some spring cleaning, and I don't just mean the coat closets. Doing your financial spring cleaning can actually be super easy when you let Monarch do your financial spring cleaning for you. One dashboard that gets your entire financial life organized. No more clutter, no more mess, no more logins scattered everywhere, just accounts, investments, property, and more, all in one place. Get your first year of Monarch for half off, just $50 with promo code FRESH. Monarch allows you to look not only at what you've already spent, but also to plan for the future. With Monarch, you can set savings goals, plan for big purchases, and notice spending trends before they become a problem. I can generate cash flow reports that show me what we spent this quarter, this month, what we're probably going to spend next month, and feel prepared, organized, and knowing how to plan for the future. No more surprises and a lot more clarity. Try Monarch. Use code FRESH at monarch.com to get your first year half off at just $50. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code FRESH.
At DSW, we ask the important questions, like, what shoes are you going to wear? Whether you're prepping for wedding season, festival season, or just planning the ultimate vacay, the right shoes can make or break an RSVP. So own the moment. You've got big plans, and we've got just the shoes. At the perfect price, of course. Get ready to get ready with Designer Shoe Warehouse. Head to your DSW store or DSW.com today and let us surprise you.
Amy, when I'm having a good hair day, it usually makes my whole day better. And that's why on every day, I'm taking Nutrafol.
Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand. And it's the #1 hair growth supplement brand personally used by dermatologists. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements are peer-reviewed, NSF certified for sport, and clinically tested.
Nutrafol offers multiple formulas for men and women tailored to different life stages and lifestyle factors, so you get support that's actually right for you. Adding Nutrafol to your daily routine is easy. Order online, no prescription needed, with automated deliveries and free shipping to keep you on track.
Let your hair be one less thing to worry about. See visibly thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair in 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol.
For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you visit Nutrafol.com and enter promo code LAUGHING.
That's Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code LAUGHING. Dr. Mike, a lot of our listeners asked versions of this question, but let's go with picky eaters as an example. So Jessica wrote in and she said, I'm a child of the 80s and 90s. Back then, we ate what was for dinner. We weren't given an option. Now there's picky eating everywhere. Are we creating, the parents of today, are we creating picky eating by tolerating it more, or is something more and different happening?
I think we're interpreting normal child behavior in much more excessive ways because of our overexposure. And then our anxiety gets triggered, and then we are taking normal behavior and pathologizing it.
Oh.
Say more about that. So we're talking about it more between ourselves.
Yeah, just do a quick search on Instagram of toddler and childhood picky eating. You're overwhelmed. And then combine that with our innate wiring. As a parent, we are, for better or for worse, wired to focus on our offspring taking in enough calories so they don't die. So it's all just coalescing into we are hyper reacting to things. And because of the nature of toddlers, especially toddlers in preschool, they react to that. And then we create now this dance of the eating, the response to the response because of their normal oppositionality and Sour Patch Kid personalities that just go along with being that. And we are hyper-focused on all the negative stuff because our brains, as you guys know, all people are wired to hyper-focus on the negative because that's a survival part of our deep emotional brain. We hyper-focused on what we feel a threat.
What's that term, Amy? You use it sometimes on the podcast. Negative reaction bias.
Negative reaction bias, yeah.
There you go. We've definitely talked about it.
Parenting is now overwhelmed by that because of that is now triggered 1,000 times a day by social media.
That's so interesting. And my Instagram feed is full right now because you look at it once for 10 seconds and welcome to your new news channel.
Yes, right. And the machine learns,
that's what... I'm getting a lot right now of Japanese toddlers in a high chair being served a bento box of actually squid and seaweed and radish for their lunch and eating it all.
And by the way, is that realistic in Ohio? No. In Colorado? No. And so, yes, picky eating is normal. There are evidence-based and well-described ways to approach it as a parent to navigate that phase so it ends sooner and your child becomes a more reliable and broad-based eater on their own. There's lots of books now. There are people who devote whole social media channels to it. But this excessive focus on it and this perception that it's now this epidemic that didn't exist before is more a function of our parenting culture than the reality of any difference in children.
A similar question on a different topic is neurodiversity.
Yes.
Lots of talk right now about the explosion of autism. I have a kid on the spectrum. I have another kid on the spectrum in my immediate family. I do sometimes think is it coming from somewhere? It seems anecdotally to me, we have twice as many kids on the spectrum as the generation before. Is there something in the water? Are we noticing this more? Is it more information?
It's B and C, to put it shortly. That when were you guys in elementary and middle school?
80s.
70s and 80s for me.
Yeah, right.
All those kids that were in the special class at the end of the hall that were called emotionally disturbed or mentally disturbed, 98% of them were actually autistic. We just didn't have a term for what that was because we had a very narrow view. And through decades of research in neurobiology, neuroscience, cognitive psychology, behavioral psychology, we have learned that autism, which is a genetically variable with 4 different main phenotypic kinds that are all expressed differently, are actually all autism and not this one narrow form that we used to talk about in the 70s and 80s and even into the 90s. And you combine that with universal screening. It hasn't been that long that it's become standard in my office that I now apply a sensitive parental checklist at the 18-month and the 2-year visit. So I'm screening now much more heavily and I'm picking things up a lot sooner than I would have 10, 15 years ago.
Do you find that parents are coming in with a concern about my kids not meeting milestones? Is there more of a concern about that?
A lot of times, especially new parents, they miss that a lot because they have nothing to compare it to. And that's why we screen and that's why we talk about it. A lot of times it's a child who's perfectly healthy and developmentally appropriate does a couple of one or two quirky things that are on a list somewhere online. And the parents come in thinking their child's actually autistic when they're not.
My oldest kid used to crawl with one knee on the floor and one foot on the floor.
I had that. My seventh child was an army crawler.
Or the elbows, right. And I think you are right. Back in our grandmother's day would have been like, yeah, he crawls funny.
He crawls funny.
It was time to worry about this.
Now shut up and peel the potatoes and
Right.
whatever. And parenting has now become, compared to our own, at least my parents as baby boomers who raised Gen X parents, parenting has become much more of an intensive endeavor.
Right.
Both for the good, but sometimes for the bad. My parents would have been arrested in today's world.
Oh, all of our parents. All of the scars from the riding in the back of the car. My husband grew up in Texas. They would drive back and forth to Dallas in the back of a pickup truck, open pickup truck, kids in the back.
Out the back of the third row of the station wagon.
Yeah. Those were the good old days.
Good old days, whatever.
They weren't so good.
But there was also a lot of emotional neglect. There was a lot of invalidation of your valid feelings. There's a lot of stuff that parents today are exemplary at because they have more information. But yet it has also sometimes this need to intensive parent the cup has overrunneth a bit in certain areas too.
I think that's right. My grandmother, we have very, very long generations, Irish family. My grandmother, who was born in 1901, was the youngest of 13 kids. Only 8 of them, I think, made it past the age of 10.
Made it to adulthood, right. So, everyone had their graveyard in the backyard of the kids that didn't make it.
Right. I remember doing my genetic outline with some very eager beaver PhD. And she's like, and what did those kids die of? I'm like, cholera, I think. I don't know. It was 1915 in New York City.
They didn't know either.
They didn't know.
It could have been leukemia. What do they know?
Polio killed a lot of people. Diphtheria killed a lot of people.
Right.
So we vaccinate, but we forget because no one has them anymore. And honestly, very few people practicing in the hospital and the ER. Almost no kids get meningitis anymore because of our vaccine. Bacterial meningitis used to be a clear and present threat to your child's life that we were worried about all the time.
I remember that from my childhood. That wasn't long ago.
That is not the case anymore, except for newborns and other vulnerable kids and kids who are medically complicated for other reasons. But it's just the average kid, because of how we protect them, it's just not something we worry about as much. We rarely see it.
Here's a burning question that I was like, this is a good question. The question that we can ask the pediatrician. So if you're a parent to older kids, as both of us are, during their yearly checkup, the parents leave the room, as we should. And the pediatrician asks the kids some questions that they might not want their mom in the room to hear.
Yes.
So my question for you, actually, it's Jennifer's question for you. When you talk to older teens without parents in the room, what are those teens sharing today that is different from when you first started practicing?
They share a lot of, I can't tell my parents. If I told my parents how I really was feeling, they freak out. So I really can't, I don't even want to address it with them because I'm afraid of their response. And so it's easier to self-medicate, and in Colorado, that usually means cannabis, than it is to approach my parents, who then will lose their minds and think it's all because of the phone and ruin my life. I can't tell you how many times that's when the parents leave the room, that's what I get.
And when they say I can't tell them how I'm feeling, how are they feeling? Worried.
Yeah, exactly. Worried, anxious, depressed. And now addicted. Oh, you can't get addicted to cannabis. Yes, you can.
So my question is that they're saying that they're depressed and anxious a lot more than they used to. And is that another example of now that's something they see on their phones every day? Or is it actually, do you think there is more mental?
There is more. I'm going to say that I really started experiencing it in practice about 2017, 2018. It started to overwhelm our office all of a sudden. And like any complicated topic, the answers are complicated. You can't boil it down to any one thing. You certainly can correlate it to how digital culture has now entwined and wrapped itself into the adolescent experience and all of the things that has impacted. Sociability, sleep, exercise, and the way our brains wired and react, and at what age you get it and you're exposed certainly impacts it. There's no question that has a lot to do with it. But I think pediatricians and the rest of us have to step back to the treetop view to go, yes, it's how it impacts everything about adolescence that is all contributing to this. That is the epidemic that is real, that is more. The adolescent brain has not changed. The adolescent brain is an unstable, overly emotional, unpredictable, and underdeveloped organ wrapped in the body of an adult. you then put that brain that has been the same for as long as there have been adolescents into a much more toxic stew that it has to marinate in that is totally different than it was 20 years ago.
So you're talking now to an audience of moms, dads who are listening, wanting the best for their kids. They're listening to a parenting podcast because they want to be better parents.
Yes.
What would you say to the parents of those teenagers who are walking in and say, I can't talk to mom and dad because they are this way?
So many of us, we were not given the tools as Gen X parents by our parents on how to react and respond to our own fears and anxieties as they relate to what's going on with our kids. We were taught to react with all we care about is compliance and performance. And when I am scared, that comes out as anger because it affects compliance and performance. I see it every day in this parenting generation. We have to change how we understand our own reactions and responses where they affect our anxieties and how that gets communicated to our child. In my opinion, you have to put a lot of deposits in the relationship bank account with your kid, especially in the middle school and high school years. And you have to be able to be self-aware enough. I'm saying this because I sucked at this and I'm better at it now. So I feel like I can talk about it. And my older children, all 7 of my children were home for the Jewish holidays with my grandchildren. And every time my older children are home, I spend the first 2 days apologizing to all of them one by one for the parent that I was and couldn't be, but I feel like I'm more now. And let me tell you, that goes a long way. But then you have to change your ability to react to meet your child where they are so they feel they have an open channel that's safe and that you can hear what they have to say. And it's so much easier to say than to do. I have had to do this myself. So I'm talking to myself. And I'm better at it than I was, and I'm not perfect. And it took me a long time to recognize that. I did not shroud myself in parental glory in a lot of situations. And my older children will tell you about it chapter and verse.
We're talking to Dr. Michael Milobsky. We'll be right back. All my kids learned to swim when they were little. It was super important to me that they be confident and safe in the water. There was only one problem with that: taking them to swim lessons. I mean, the pools were freezing. There were always cranky adults doing laps right there. And it was definitely not, for any of us, what you would call fun.
Amy, heard. But now there's Goldfish Swim School. Goldfish takes a really thoughtful approach to swim lessons, combining research-based teaching with a warm, kid-friendly environment that actually helps kids thrive in the water.
Every detail at Goldfish is thoughtfully designed to create a golden experience, from shiver-free, warm indoor pools to comfy waiting areas for parents to professionally trained lifeguards on deck.
Goldfish uses an approach called the science of swim play, which combines guided play with proven teaching techniques to help kids learn to swim, build water safety skills, and gain confidence, all at their own pace. Lessons are designed to meet kids exactly where they're at.
If you've been thinking about swim lessons or just wondering where to start, this is a great opportunity. Right now, Goldfish Swim School is offering a waived membership plus your child's first lesson free at participating locations.
Just visit goldfishswimschool.com/free to find a location near you and enroll using promo code FREE.
That's goldfishswimschool.com/free, promo code FREE. My favorite skincare products actually feel more like self-care, like they're so nice to put on and they smell so good that I'm actually happy when I get to that part of my day. And I swear that is how I feel about Osea's anti-aging body balm.
Amy, you are usually the lotions and potions queen on this podcast, but I have to say, hard agree.
Osea's anti-aging body balm is a liquid silk body balm that combines the lasting hydration of a lotion with the firming power of a serum, leaving skin smoother and firmer.
This body balm is clinically tested and designed to deliver visible results you can see and feel.
So we've gotten to use this product for a couple of months now, and I swear I have really noticed firmer and smoother skin, like on the back of my hands. It's like getting a mini spa treatment from head to toe.
Get a spring-worthy glow with clean, clinically tested skincare from Osea. And right now, we have a special discount just for our listeners.
Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code FRESH at OseaMalibu.com.
That's 10% off your first order with code FRESH at OSEAMalibu.com. Let me ask a general question as a person who told a child to stop complaining for 3 days and then brought them in for an emergency appendectomy.
Margaret, every one of my kids has a story about, hey, we told dad that this hurt. He blew us off and it was. So I blew off my own kids' stuff a lot.
Good. That makes me feel better. That makes me feel better.
We're actually worse at it than normal people. So,
I mean, I'm just from the Irish tradition of if it hurts tomorrow, we cut it off.
yeah, I'm going to put my feelings here and then someday I'll die.
Yeah. And also, like, there is no such thing as pain and you're not sick if you're still alive. What are the couple of headline things in childhood illness that people should look for? What are things where you're like, if you see this, go to the doctor?
It kind of depends by age. That's what makes it so hard. Pediatricians actually take care of like 5 different human beings.
That's right.
Yeah.
Newborns are not babies. Babies are not toddlers. Toddlers are not preschoolers. Preschoolers are not school age kids. School age kids are not adolescents. I'll kind of stratify it. A legitimate rectal fever in a newborn, especially a child a month age and younger, is I'm going to the doctor now and it doesn't matter when. They do not have the ability to defend things that can be transferred to them from birth, things like group B strep, herpes virus that you may not even know that you have.
Fever starts at what temperature?
100.4.
So, Dr. Mike, you just said this on Instagram this week. And Margaret, you're going to love this list. Number 5 is just for you. Dr. Mike, there are 5 things that you say as a parent, a grandparent, a pediatrician, you would never let your children or grandchildren do.
Number 5 was drown in homework at the expense of sleep, exercise, and family connection.
That's right.
The cause of my life. After no more goodie bags, it's the cause of my life.
I'm always no more birthday parties. In fact, we stopped birthday parties like by kid 3, and my kids go to an Orthodox Jewish private school, so it's not a big thing. So we got away with it for a long time. My 7th child in kindergarten came home and tossed, by the way, she wasn't parented either because she's the 7th kid.
She's the wolf
she's
child.
Feral.
Kind of like Hannibal Lecter. She's like very, very scary. Only the most adorable way. But she threw a card down and she said, "Can you read that to me?" So we read, she's like, "You're invited to Shandy's house for birthday. There will be cake and goodie bags, blah, blah, blah." And she's like, "What are they talking about? Did you know about this?"
Wow. Amazing
and my
work.
wife and I had to literally pretend and go, "What?"
Listen, I have dressed down many a 7-year-old who's like, "Where are the goodie bags?" And I'm like, "Ma'am, let me explain to you how long plastic will be on this earth for." And they're like, "Mommy, I want to leave this party. The mean lady is lecturing me about plastic again." But my second greatest cause is homework that disrupts sleep.
Do you say, like, I'm a pediatrician, I know about sleep? Does the school push back when you say you have no homework?
Thankfully, part of the educational choices we make is that we choose a school that's aligned with our home values. And so the homework situation in elementary school is very rational. It starts to get irrational. But we've had to, at times, empower my child to be like, "You're allowed to stop. I don't care what your grades are here. You need to take care of yourself. We need to go out. We're going to go take a walk. We're going to take a hike together. That's what we're doing. You're not going to sit around and do this. And I'll write you a note. I don't care." And if the teachers want to talk to us, we talk to them. And we just say, "Look, really sorry, but in our house, this is how we have to function. Give her whatever grade you're going to give her. We're not really concerned about it."
So what are the other things that you, as a pediatrician, would never let your own kids or grandchildren do?
1, e-bikes and scooters. Because I practiced PDR for a while and I still do, I see an increasing number of the most devastating injuries, especially traumatic brain injuries. E-bikes and scooters are way overpowered in the hands of people who do not have the prefrontal cortex to manage it. Combine that with the fact that even if it's not their fault, they're just not seen, and the speed and the risk-taking, it's a really, really ugly recipe. So I hate them, and I would never allow them in my home. And when my kids move out, they can do whatever they want. As I tell them, "You don't live in my house anymore, but while you're here, it's not going to be a part of your life."
By scooters, you mean ones that have a motor?
E-scooters. Anything that you have to put your own muscle force into is inherently safer, and I don't limit those at all, ever. By the way, people have pointed out, why don't you have trampoline on that list? Because I had a trampoline for 20 years. We did not have a single serious injury because we followed 2 rules. One is no one jumps in groups, 2 max, and those 2 people have to be roughly the same size. When we followed those rules, I never had a single injury.
Those are good rules.
20 years of having a trampoline in my house.
All right, what else is on the list?
2 is unsupervised young children around water until they are competent swimmers. People somehow think that they'll hear their kid drown. It is not. It is a silent event. And if everyone's watching your kid, no one's watching your kid.
I have a tip for this.
Yeah.
When I go on vacation, when I had 3 kids under 4, so I had really closely spaced little kids. I had a bracelet for each kid, one of those little rubber bracelets. And if you were wearing their color, you were responsible for them in the water.
That's the summer camp method. You got your swim buddy at the lake.
And you were watching them until you handed it to someone else, because it's very different than being like, I'm going to the bathroom, you watch Timmy, but the person didn't hear you. You have to go up and put the bracelet on a different person, and somehow having the bracelet on. Someone taught me that when my kids were little, and it was really helpful.
Toddlers cannot, should not walk and eat. I see way too many choking events. It's the recipe for a dangerous or deadly choking event. Walking and eating toddlers does not happen in my house anymore. Never has.
The pediatrician in my family is very big on walking with a lollipop in your mouth.
Yeah, because you can also get that fall and get the injury to the vascular body. I've seen that a lot too. Way less common, but still worth noticing it's in the same realm.
Same category. No walking and eating.
I never prescribe my own children or other children antibiotics for a clearly viral illness. Even if people ask or try to convince me that I'm wrong or that they need it anyway, you're doing damage you don't know about. Antibiotics are good when they're necessary, but we are learning a tremendous amount about gut health and the gut-brain axis and how that impacts so many things. And antibiotics just are bad for that. And there's no reason to take it most of the time. And people disregard what we say, and then just they'll go to, because urgent care will give antibiotics to everybody because they're not pediatricians most of the time. So I get it. Just, I'm telling you, in my house, we don't do it, and I don't do it for other people's kids. And I try to explain why. And number 5 is I don't allow my children to drown in homework at the expense of exercise, sleep, and family connections and priorities.
We've been talking to Dr. Michael Milobsky. You can find him on TikTok at Dr. Mike M, on Instagram at Peds at the Meadows, and on YouTube at Dr. Michael Milobsky, and on his podcast, Your Kids Will Be Fine. We will put the links to all of those things in the show notes for this episode.
A great conversation today with Dr. Mike. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
You can't reason with the sun. Trust us, we've tried. This summer, it's time to put that angry ball of fire on mute. Columbia's Omni-Shade technology is engineered to protect you from the sun's harsh rays that can burn and damage your skin. The sun is relentless, but so is our gear. Level up your summer at Columbia.com to spend more time outside and less time slathering on aloe lotion. You're welcome. Columbia, engineered for whatever.